If you ask me, is there anybody in the world whom you would like to really emulate and learn from a lot? Right at the top of that list would be Ganesh. So Ganesh, thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure, Naren. And of course, I think you are probably underestimating your own potential and your power to engage. So I think our friendship is mutual and our appreciation is also mutual.
You have scaled many peaks in your life. I mean, right, coming from a small village in Jharkhand and rising to the top and heading some international boards, what would you consider as the biggest achievement of your life?
You know, Naren, my biggest, I won't even say achievement, but my biggest happiness is I've managed to stay connected with the real India. Because if you really look at, a lot of people rise in life, get opportunities, succeed, but the ability to stay connected to the villager, to the young person in the slum, and of course to young people anywhere in India and all the 87 countries I've visited, I think connectedness and the ability to say that, look, let's biggest, I wouldn't say accomplishment, but biggest achievement to date. And I hope to continue that, because we need to all realize that we are all equal. Sometimes fate gives us more opportunities than others, but that doesn't put us on a pedestal or a platform.
So when in this journey, who would have been your biggest support systems, especially in times of difficulties?
Well, I would give a lot of credit, obviously, to my wife, because I've been married for 38 years. Got married very early in life. I was 24 and my wife Uma was just 22. We met straight out of college in our first job. And at that time, both of us obviously were very immature. Like two young MBAs, we were all looking for opportunities in life. And I think we got our share of opportunities. I made my mistakes. But throughout, I think if there was a dilemma or something that I needed to get advice on, I think Uma has been my real bulwark of support. Prior to that, of course, my father was a great inspiration because he was a very successful entrepreneur, also had a very strong cultural orientation. And we lived in Ranchi, and he ran the Tamil Shangam in Ranchi. He also had a very amazing social venture. I mean, it was with the Ramakrishna Mission in Ranchi, where it was a Seva Kendra, which used to work for the children of 6 villages around where we were. So I think he was a great inspiration. But I think it's been people in my family who have been very selfless, who have not worried about how much money we make, but how much impact we can do on society. I think that's been real areas of influence. Today, I have a few young mentors, people who teach me new things every day. If we get time, I'll talk about them. And I think they are the real reasons for my continued motivation and my wanting to do more for the very young.
So speak about them, Ganesh, your young mentors.
Well, I think you know some of them. I mean, there is this amazing young woman called Amruta Bahulekar.
Yes.
Amruta is a Leela Poonawalla fellow. In fact, she was actually educated in Pune, then went to the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. And she now runs our most ambitious social program called the Skills Lighthouses of Pune. And if you meet Amruta, and many of you have met her, I mean, the conviction, the passion she has, the belief in youth, the belief that youth themselves are capable of building action groups, defining their own destiny, and they don't need to be included like many of us in the corporate sector used to believe, but they will want to get opportunities to fulfill their aspirations. I think, I learn new things from Amruta literally every time I meet her, and I'm fortunate that I meet her at least once a week.
So Ganesh, when we work in the lighthouse with so many youth, let's say from the not so fortunate as you and me have been, what do you find in them which is different from, let's say, the well-to-do families?
The good part is that I think every young person in India is similar. Okay, we all grow up with reasonably good family values. We all grow up with some respect for authority, and we all grow up with a very questioning mind. And I'm sure all the 200 plus people who are listening on this chat and maybe more on YouTube and Facebook, all grow up like that. So there's no difference. The only difference is the opportunities we get. Sometimes when you grow up in an affluent family,
Hmm.
you that look, it's not fate, but your family wealth that gives you the opportunity to learn, etc., etc.
Hmm.
But when you're growing up in a not so privileged background, I think there is a challenge of saying that, look, maybe it's a very large family, maybe
Hmm.
your parents don't have enough to go around. So I
Hmm.
think that's the only difference. But apart from that, the ability to dream, the ability to want to be something bigger than you in life, that is what has really taken India forward. I mean, if all of you know, we were a very poor country when we got
Hmm.
independence in 1947. And unfortunately, our British masters and before that, our Mughal masters had subjugated us to a large extent. But in spite of that, if you look at the four successive generations of young people who have grown up since then, each one of us has done better than our parents. Each one of us have a better aspiration for our children. And I think the youth of today are born, as I was saying before this session started, with the opportunity to do much better than what you've seen before. Of course, there will be challenges. We're all still in a COVID pandemic situation, and I think 2021 will be challenging. But if you dream, if you find mentors like Amruta and various people I mentioned, who can kind of hold your hand when you run into any obstacle, you can surpass your own dreams and the dreams that your maybe previous generations have for you. And you must have that confidence to make that happen.
So, Ganesh, you have interacted with very successful people all across the globe, um, enough in India and so many more abroad. Do you see some approach difference or some method difference or the thinking difference between people, let's say in US, Europe, and people in our country?
It's a very good question, Naren. And let me talk about youth, since most of your audience is youth. I
Huh.
do a lot of lectures, as you know, right from Harvard Business School to various universities in India, in America.
Hmm.
Whenever I teach or talk about something, let's say in an American audience,
Hmm.
I feel that young people, when I ask for a question, for instance, in a class of 80, maybe 60 hands will go up saying, I want to ask, I want to ask. And I always find that Indians are much shyer. We always worry that if I put up my hand, will I be able to ask a question that is impressive? Will I
Hmm.
will my language, especially when you're asking questions in English, will you
Hmm.
be able to ask questions where you don't feel embarrassed that my English was not very good? But
Hmm.
Americans don't have that problem. So I think that is something we need to learn, because as India tries to become Atmanirbhar, as India tries to become a dominant force in the world, it's important for young people to say that, look, we come from a proud nation, we have a proud heritage, a proud civilization, we are the best in the world, and we can make it happen. So I think that Atmanirbharta will come when you have Atma Saman, when you have self-confidence, self-respect, and it happens. So I think that's the difference. Americans believe they literally can conquer the world, whereas in India, they still are a little diffident. And I myself, I was a very introverted young person when I was studying engineering in Ranchi. And I used to hide from conversations, hide from asking questions. But then I told myself that, look, I have to be like the Europeans and Americans. I have to be self-confident. And which is why, automatically then words like leadership, motivation, all that happens to you because you know that there is no frontier that you cannot cross. There is no bridge you cannot cross. There's no mountain you cannot climb. And that confidence has to be in you. And all the young people I interact with, I worked constantly in organizations where average age has been 26, 27. And I think the sky is the limit as far as you're concerned.
Hmm. Uh, when we look at the youth today, is there anything which scares you about them?
I don't think I get scared by the youth as much as the environment that sometimes young people are brought up in. And that is always a bit of a challenge because you get so much negativism around you.
Hmm.
When you watch on the television, you inevitably find that people are talking negative, even when it comes to the farmers' agitation that is going on today.
Hmm.
You at least some channels which will say, oh, no, no, it's motivated, the politicians are bad, and they actually want divisiveness, etc., etc. So I think this general feeling of negativism is pervasive in this country. And I would strongly encourage all of you to look at the positives, because I remember, and this is my favorite story. My favorite friend growing up was this little village boy called Fantush in this little village, Tati Silva, near Ranchi, where I grew up. And I lost contact with Fantush because when I was 22, I left Ranchi and moved to Bombay and then Nasik and then Delhi and then London and then US. But 4 years ago, my wife Uma said, let us go and find your friend Fantush. We actually went back to Ranchi. We went to the village hart. You know what a village hart is, folks? I mean, it's a local marketplace where even today people play kabaddi and do cockfighting and things like that. So it's amazing. So, and we asked lots of people and they said, yeah, Fantush to suna nahi hai. I mean, we've not heard that name before. But then they said, you go to the hart. It's a Tuesday, and every Tuesday afternoon there's a hart. So we went to the Tuesday afternoon hart. And we asked a lot of people, कि फंटुश का नाम का कोई सुना है क्या? So they said नहीं, but वो जाके वो औरत हैं, उनको 80 साल हो गया है, उनको सब मालूम है, क्योंकि she is an old lady for the last 50-60 years. So we went and asked. So then he says, हाँ, उसका नाम मगर फंटुश नहीं है, उसका नाम है परमेश्वर ठाकुर. I said, my God, I never knew my friend had such a big name. So we found him. In fact, then Fantush came and stayed with us in Pune for about 2 weeks. He kind of was marveling at the way city people are, how they dress, how they talk, etc. And then he went back and told his daughter, okay, saying that, look, you should be inspired by this. Tumko bhi bada hoke ye sab banna hai. So his daughter now talks to me occasionally. And the funniest part is when the demonetization happened, if some of you remember. And there was this general perception that, oh, people are running out of money, etc., etc. So the first call I got was from Fantush. And I said, Fantush, kya ho gaya bhai? I thought he was in trouble. So he says in his best Bhojpuri language, he says, Babu, ab theek to hai na? I said, mujhe kya hone wala? He said, मैंने सुना है कि बम्बई में मुकेश अंबानी जी भी लाइन में खड़े हुए हैं राशन का. I'm like, who told you this, man? But some politician has told him, there is lots of problem, ye wo, sab amir log garib ho jayenge, etc., etc. And so instead of having an environment where people who are not so well off want to do better, these sometimes take joy in saying the well-to-do are coming down. I mean, we all want democracy, we all want equality, but equality is not by everybody doing badly. Equality is by everybody doing well. So I think, that's just an anecdote. So I really think that's the only thing that's going wrong. And I hope that young people and your mentors, the friends you choose, will motivate you to think better and faster. So I am a very positive person. Even the company I've started, as Naren knows, is called 5F World. And the 5Fs are fast, focused, flexible, friendly, and fun. So I really believe that young people should have lots of fun. Don't let anybody tell you ki, bhaiya, you have to be serious all the time. Because you have to enjoy life. You have to enjoy your friends. You have to enjoy people. Naren and I, whenever we meet, we enjoy talking to each other. I mean, even in the height of the pandemic, I used to go to his office. We used to have coffee together. We used to talk about the world. When he has a problem, he tells me. When I have a problem, I share it with him. So I think you need people like that who can be your real brothers and sisters and your brothers and sisters in an acquired life. But make yourself positive and forward thinking. I think that's very important.
Ganesh, just before you was this gentleman called Siddharth Mantri. Now he is the chief product officer for this MX player, where this ashram and things are going on right now. So he asked a very interesting question that when will India and Bharat merge together? Or are we destined to live as two different countries in the same country?
It's a great point, and let me tell you what we are doing. As I said, Naren, you mentioned the word lighthouse, and now I'm building a new entity called Lighthouse Communities. What's the purpose of Lighthouse Communities? Like we have done in Pune, where we have 8 skills lighthouses. It will become 15 in 2 years' time, which covers every administrative ward of the city. And our goal is that every one of maybe 2.5 lakh underprivileged people will have a chance thanks to our lighthouses. In fact, the government of India, the Ministry of Urban Development, and a friend of ours called Kunal Kumar, who's also from Ranchi, who's the Joint Secretary and the Mission Director for Smart Cities. He's been telling us, why don't you make this happen across Bharat? So there are, how many of you are aware? There are 4,400 urban locations in India. I mean, out of which 150 are smart cities, but where people are living in cities. And then, as you probably know, there are close to 600,000 villages in the country, 250,000 gram panchayats. So our mission is, India is a very large country, as you know, 1.3 billion or more. But we are saying, we are now influencing 100,000 people in Pune. The next milestone is take it to 1 million, and 1 million will be across 20 cities. Then we want to take this model and offer it to anybody. It's what in the technology sector we call open source. Anyone who wants to take the Lighthouse courses, curriculum, etc., want to build it in your city, we'll help you to do it. So maybe not in my lifetime, but the Lighthouse Communities Foundation, people like my partner in LSC, in Lighthouse Communities, is a very bright woman called Ruchi Mathur. Ruchi has been educated in the highest level educational institution in the country, the Indian Institute of Management. I am Ahmedabad. So from IMA, the last 20 years, she's built a social environment. And then we have people like Amruta, whom I mentioned, many other people who are working together. So whether it's me, whether it's Ruchi, whether it's Amrita, our goal is that we will keep moving on and integrate. Make models maybe in Pune, which next we are implementing in Delhi. We hope to implement in Bombay. We're starting, in fact, after this call, I have a call with the Commissioner of Chennai to see whether we can do it in Chennai. So spread across the country. And to take your point, Naren, hopefully then we will not worry whether we are in India or Bharat. My goal is to go back and live in a small village. So we should not, that if we live in a village, oh my God, we don't have the joys of being in Pune or Mumbai or wherever. Everything should. I mean, the role model is the USA or Europe for that. Nobody is, I mean, a village is actually a great place to live in UK. I was living in London. People say, why don't you live in the village? The village is not a village with thatched huts as we see it. It's just a village of Chesham or the village of Amersham, which is maybe a 45-minute drive from London. People don't want to live in central London. They want a nice house. They want a small street, a market town. So hopefully the villages will come up to become small towns. The big cities, we will have deurbanization, where it will not be so congested. People will move out. Jobs will get distributed all over the country. And that is my dream. Will that dream happen in my lifetime? I don't know. I think Tushar Cheriwal is saying, and Fantush, you are absolutely right. So Fantush should also believe he is Bharatiya, he is Indian, and it's not just Ganesh or Naren or any of you on a Zoom call or a Facebook call to do that. That's important.
Ganesh, you have worked a lot with the government as well as the corporates. Do you think ethics is an issue, or do you think there are ways by which we can manage the system, or will lack of ethics or low level of ethics stop us from progressing fast, like we see maybe some European, Scandinavian countries? What is your thoughts on ethics, youth, and the future?
Let me rephrase your question, Naren. Okay, I was in a session at the when was it? I think it was a global conference 2 days ago, where Rohini Nilekani, who was Mr. Nandan Nilekani's wife and a very strong force in the social sector, she talked about what it will take for the country to succeed. And she said 3 people have to come together. And she used Hindi and she said Samaj, Sarkar, or Bazaar. What does it mean? It means that we have to collaborate across what is called civil society, which is the social sector, with Sarkar, which is government, and Bazaar, which is business. So sometimes we believe, oh, that businessman is corrupt. Sometimes we think, oh, that government official will ask for a bribe or he's corrupt. I mean, to me, there are no such clear distinctions. Sometimes we ourselves can be corrupt in our own mind because we are assuming the worst of somebody who may actually have good intentions. So I think the goal is to say, let's look for the essential good in everybody. There is nobody who is born good or bad. Sometimes circumstances force you to be a little devious, a little political. I don't even like those words. In fact, somebody said that, oh, India is all about jugaad innovation. I hate that word because jugaad is a negative word. It means that if you cannot take the straight path, you take some crooked path and make things happen.
Mm.
Life, I've never paid a bribe. Okay, even when I was running a very large company called Zensar in Pune,
Mm.
and we built a very new campus in a place called Kharadi, which is just on the outskirts. And the campus was waiting for electricity. And somebody said, "Aap 2 lakh isko de do, and you can get electricity tomorrow." I said, "No, 2 lakh mein nahi dunga to kya hoga?" They said, "Might take 3 months." I said, "We'll wait 4 months." But we do not want to build a wonderful campus for 6,000 people on the back of having paid somebody to get electricity. So sure enough, I met the commissioner. Within 2 weeks, we had electricity. So I'm saying what is sometimes thinking, oh, we can do things fast if we pay somebody. Then why should you do it? I mean,
Mm.
if you have a violation, don't immediately take out a 100 rupee note. Fill the receipt, pay the fine. So I think if we, as Indians, especially as young Indians, if we strongly believe that, look, we can build an honest, incorruptible country where Sarkar, Samaj, and Bazaar can work together, we don't need to worry. Okay. And ethics has to start in your own mind. You have to be ethical and you have to believe in all honesty that everybody can be ethical. So I'm a very strong believer in that. And I have not had a problem in 63 years of life by being ethical. There's no reason why you should also.
Mm. Ganesh, you have mentored so many people. I mean, right from your AppTech days, where you narrated once an anecdote about how two brothers came and they became one of the biggest uh, franchisee owners for AppTech. Then, of course, Zensar. Then, of course, PCC. Then SVP. So you're a very big believer in youth. You really invest time, energy, and attention with the youth. You would have probably seen some youth who are very smart but not doing well in life. You would have seen some people with very regular, normal talents, God gifted talents, but they are doing well in life. Uh, is there a collection of qualities or an attitude where you believe if this is there with the youth, they will certainly do well in life?
I can point you back, Naren, to our 5 Fs. In fact, somebody
Ah,
asked a question saying, can
ah,
you say those words again? Let me say those words again.
ah,
It's fast, which is
ah,
speed. It is focus, which is a
ah,
very clear sense of direction. It's flexible, which is the way you adapt.
ah,
Friendly, and those are the 5 Fs.
ah,
So,
ah,
Naren, is
ah,
flexible. And let me explain that.
ah,
See, there was a time when there were very limited options for us. Like I remember when I grew up in Ranchi,
ah,
I went to a school which was 5 kilometers away from home. So my sister and I used to cycle to school every day.
ah,
And I remember when I was in class 8, I think. Okay. So then I heard the word IIT for the first time. So
ah,
I said, IIT Jana. Okay. So
ah,
I went to told my principal. He was an Anglo-Indian gentleman called Fitzgerald. We used to call him
ah,
Fitzy. And I told him, Fitzy, I want to go to IIT. So he started laughing. I said, so why are you laughing? He said, no, see, unfortunately, we are a little school in a small town and we're not teaching you physics and chemistry and maths so well that you can get into an IIT. So you have to settle for something. I said, look, why should I settle for second best? He says, don't worry. One thing we have taught you where you're extremely good is English because it was an English missionary school. I said, how will English help me? I mean, this is a
mm,
Hindi speaking country. He says, believe me, when you're 60 years old and you look back at your career and you say, what helped you? It'll be English. And I completely agree with Fitzy. See, it's communications. English communicate well. So I think the important, in fact, I have a favorite author who, gentleman called Yuval Noah Harari. Okay, and he wrote a wonderful book called Sapiens. If any of your readers, you should read that book. Sapiens is a history of the last 2000 words, 2000 years, sorry. Then he wrote another great book called Homo Deus. You all know that human beings are called Homo sapiens, and Homo Deus is the future human, which is what many of you young people will be. So when you're Homo Deus, what does it mean? It means that every 15 years there will be new opportunities that come to your life. So when I was growing up, I mean, we had young people are only two options. I mean, if you wanted to be a professional, you could either be an engineer or a doctor. And I didn't like cutting cockroaches, so I didn't like what is called dissection. So
mm,
that was I could only become an engineer. And then, as Fitzy said, not necessarily the best of colleges. I mean, Birla Institute of Technology is a good college, but it's not IIT. And eventually I did my PhD in IIT Bombay just to make it a point that I want to be in IIT. But that's not the point. But today, when all of you young people have at least 50 career choices, and what happens is what you learn in your college or your academic institution is preparing you for your first job or your first entrepreneurship. But keep thinking fast, okay? Because that is what will get you. Maybe 15 years later, you'll do something completely different. I mean, I myself switched from being a shop floor mechanical engineer to running a software company, to then to education, then switched back to software exports, then switched to what I'm doing today, which is investing, consulting, social sector. So if you're flexible, if you're keep an open mind, world will open up opportunities for you. And that is a gift you have in the current generation. So you should make the most of it. But you can only make the most of opportunity when you're prepared for that opportunity. So never stop learning, never stop asking questions, never stop communicating, never stop sharing what you learn with other people, because that makes the world a better place for you and for everybody who comes in touch with you.
Ganesh, in your path, you would have probably faced many obstacles. मतलब काफी बार जिंदगी में उतार चढ़ाव वगैरह वगैरह आए होंगे. So, were you ever in self-doubt? And if yes, what did you do to conquer it?
Well, that is the reason why you should have a mentor or a good friend, because people always, I mean, when you like, even when you take a decision, you always worry. Like sometimes, I mean, face it, I mean, I've run large companies. In some companies, you find that somebody whom you hired personally and tried to mentor is not performing, maybe because of some family reason or whatever. And it is important for the shareholders of the company that you don't allow people who are not performing to continue. This is a problem that many people face. I mean, I remember talking to a very legendary CEO, a gentleman called Jack Welch, whom some of you may know. He was one of the best CEOs. He ran this company called General Electric. And he used to be called Neutron Jack. You know what Neutron Jack? Because Jack Welch could explode at any point of time. He was like a neutron bomb. So when we met him in Washington, D.C. in the US, we
Ganesh.
let me tell you a story. These 6 people are floating down the river and they all have a paddle in their hand and they're in a round boat. So they're all rowing and the boat is moving forward. So he asked us a question. What do you think will happen if one of these people stop rowing? We thought about it, and if you think about it, you'll figure that the boat cannot move because then it'll go zigzag. It won't go in the right direction because it's a round boat. So we then came up to that conclusion. So he said, then what do you do? So we all got the message saying that, look, if somebody is not willing to be part of the team, somebody is not pulling their weight, the organization is suffering or society is suffering because of the person. The simplest way is to tell the person, Bhaiya, obviously you're not enjoying what you're doing. The society or the company is also not benefiting. So you should go. So when Americans companies, almost seem ruthless in letting people go, as they call it, they don't call people being fired as dismissal. It's letting people go. It's like let people go and do what their heart desires, because there is a wonderful future awaiting each one of us. But sometimes we get into the wrong company or we get into the right company at the wrong time. But we must be very careful to keep evaluating and saying, am I enjoying myself? When I was running Zensar, I used to meet every new employee, and every month they used to organize a induction. And my comment to each one of them was that, look, any day on a Monday morning when you get into the company bus and you say, oh my God, I don't want to go to Zensar. I said, you please come and meet me. My office is always open door, and come and resign. People said, my God, the CEO is asking me to go. I said, no, I'm not asking you to go. But you are miserable. When you're miserable, you will be unhappy. If you're having people with reporting to you, you will make their life unhappy. Your boss will be unhappy. You will create this misery in the organization. But if you're happy and you like what you're doing, then it's great. And the day you stop being happy, I said, you come to me. I will find you a job. I'll find you a job that will give you 20% more salary. But don't stay. Same is true not of families, don't get me wrong, because families are there where you have to build relationship forever. But anytime you find unhappiness, change, do something different, because life is too short to be unhappy.
Hmm. You would have also had a lot of pressure and a lot of expectations from people. How do you deal with and how do you handle pressure and expectations?
Expectations from me, or my expectations from other people? Which one?
Others' expectations from you.
I know when you're running a public limited company, as they call it, you
Yeah.
have 25,000 shareholders who all expect you to do better and better every quarter. We used to call it QSQT, not Kayamat se Kayamat tak, but quarter se quarter tak. Because every quarter you have to deliver better and better results. And I ran Aptech and Zensar for between the two of them almost 25 years. And it was this pressure. So that's the expectation. But you need to be clear what you're doing.
Hmm.
I remember we once bought a company in America. It was a $66 million acquisition, which, as you can convert, is almost 3,000 crores. It's a very large acquisition for a company of our size. And we knew that for 2 years, it would take us time to turn the company around. It was not going to be easy, etc., etc. And I used to openly tell the stock markets in Bombay, saying that, look, guys, for the next 2, 3 quarters, do not
Hmm.
expect us to do well because it's going to take us time, it's going to be costly to integrate, etc. And because I was communicating, they forgave me. Okay, so for instance, the
Hmm.
expectation was there that, look, I would around in 3 months. Not possible. I told them very clearly, it's going to take me 3 years. So this is something that you have to also manage expectations. Because if you let the weight of people's expectations sit on your head, like all of us, parents. I mean, when you come back, I remember I had a very bright company secretary or legal person in Zensar. And one day she came and resigned. I said, what happened? He said, look, I went back home one day and she had a 7-year-old son saying, my mother-in-law told me that, look, your son only got 97% in maths. If you had been at home, he would have got 100. That's the weight of expectation. And I said, look, you can't let this go to your head because you're doing a great job. You're doing such, and you're supporting your family. But she left. And okay, later on, she started working again. But that is letting expectations get into you. You be
Hmm.
clear, your best, you're doing your best, and the expectation setting with your bosses, with your family, with your colleagues, with your friends has to be there. A lot of people, they go out every night and party, young people especially. Why? Because the expectation. My friends expect me to be there with them, I'm this great guy and I'll be there every day. And you tire yourself out. So
Hmm.
ask yourself what you really want. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, my most recent expectation of myself is playing golf. For 62 years of my life, I said, look, I don't have time because golf would mean, and anything I do, I want to do well. So, I mean, it would mean at least 4 hours per day, at least 2 days a week. I have to go to the golf course. And I said, is this the best use of my time? I said, no. But this year, one of my young CEOs, young girl called Ipsita from Orissa, so she told me, why don't we learn golf together? She is 20 years younger than me. So both she and I have started golf like literally 2 weeks back. But I believe that now I have the time. Okay, maybe I can spend a little bit of time for myself. So I'm
Hmm.
lessening the expectation from my. Nobody told me whether I should play golf or not. Nobody told me whether I should run a
Yeah.
large company or not. Nobody told me I should leave and join the social sector. So set your own benchmarks. Be happy with what you're doing, and don't get upset by. I mean, the only expectation of anybody you should meet is your spouse, because there is a, as Naren knows very well that he and his wife Bharti, have expectations of each other. They meet. Same thing with me and Uma. So I think when you make lifelong relationships, try and overreach to meet those expectations. But don't try and meet the expectation of every friend, every boss, every company,
Hmm.
every shareholder. Not going to happen. So give yourself that latitude to say what expectations should I do for myself. Communicate that so that people know what to expect. What they call what you see is what you get. You will be happier.
So one question, Ganesh, which has come from the audience, and then I'll just check if there are more questions from the audience. How do you manage multiple projects at the same time?
Well, I would love to say I do them one at a time. It doesn't happen that way. Yesterday, I sent some of my friends a picture of I was working because I had three computers in front of me. I had the television watching the farmer movement, and I had my phone. Okay, because there was something I was reading, there was something I was writing, there was a slightly boring meeting which I was attending where I didn't really need to listen all the time. Like this is the classic multitasking.
uh,
Is it recommended for everybody? Okay, I mean, I
uh,
would not recommend you do that, but I do try and do as many things as possible. Plus, I try and make every minute count. I mean, even I'm not exactly young, but I'm saying that look, what is the point of having a waking minute where the birds are in the sky and the sun is shining, and you just want to. So I don't sleep more than I think I need to, which I think I only need 5 hours a night of sleep. So I stay in bed not more than 6 hours. I still do a lot of exercises, workouts. Now golf is added to that. So I give some time for myself. But I would say that I'm 16 or 17 hours a day, I'm working. Working not to make money. Okay, that's a very
mm,
small part of my life. But working, whether it's for the community, working, investing in companies, and I enjoy it. So I think making time for what you believe adds value to yourself, adds value to society, adds value to whichever constituency that you want to keep happy. I think that's very, very important. Don't forget, make time for your family also. A lot of families break up because people are too obsessed.
mm,
Like, I mean, one of our big is a lady whom you haven't heard the name of called Mackenzie Scott. Mackenzie Scott is the wife of Jeff Bezos of Amazon.
mm,
Most of you have heard of the word Jeff. I mean, he's one of the richest men in the world, Jeff Bezos.
mm,
But his marriages, American marriages break up because they just get too obsessed with one. So I think you have to, and the biggest value of the Indian culture is in fact, all of us in Pune City Connect have this thing of what we stand for.
mm,
Think about it, young people. Think of what you stand for today. Okay. In
mm,
fact, I thought about it for a long time, and I said I stand for two things. I stand for love and I stand for inclusion. I really want everybody around me to feel part of my ecosystem. And I really want people to feel love. Feel that, look, I really care for them. They care for me. And it's made my life so happy. So somebody else may stand for integrity. Somebody else may stand for something else. But be clear.
mm.
And if you stand for something, live up to those values. So I know I've kind of strayed from Naren's question, but I think that is to me the most important. Be true to yourself, true to what you stand for, and then you'll find that you can do multiple things because the strand of what you stand for, your values, will always shine through and make that happen.
Mm. So one final question, Ganesh. What is that one organization you would like to experience? And is there any organization where you would want to be a part of at any level?
Not really. I mean, I can't even think of any, but certainly, I mean, I would like to experience a much larger social organization that we ourselves are building. So even we have a offsite with our 8-member leadership team next weekend. We're just going to say that, look, I mean, what is our dream? What's our collective dream? I said 1 million lives changed. I said maybe impacting 120 smart cities. And I'm just saying that, look, we have to be part of something. It doesn't matter how small it is, how large it is, but that organization of love inclusion where people do, I think that's what is important. And as you know, Naren, I mean, I ran social venture partners in India for 3 years. Thoroughly enjoyed it, because that organization was at multiple layers. It had wonderful people like Naren. It had a board of people like Mr. Arun Maira, who's a very great visionary. We had 7 wonderful young women who are running that organization, including a really bright woman called Parul Vaidya, who's based out of Pune, is a general manager for Pune. So people like that, these multiple layers of organization leadership, that really motivates me. And we have SVP International, which is a board based in Seattle in the US. In fact, we have literally fortnightly meetings. And so all these people working for civilization, working to make a better world, working for equity and what we call inclusion in the world, I think that's amazing. So I think those are the kind of organizations I like to belong to, which keep changing, which will morph, which will change form, which will change structure, but the essential values will never change.
Mm. Wow. So to
Have
sum
you
up the entire
have you
thing,
become too serious in this conversation?
no, no, no. I think there was
No, I was
good.
serious in this conversation.
No, I think very lovely insights. good fun, some very nice laughter, very practical life-based experiences is what was shared. Um, I would, so the questions are coming, but I think we will need to wind up in a few minutes. So I would like to just summarize what I picked up. And in the meanwhile, if somebody in the audience wants to key in what is it that they picked up, they can put it over here in the chat box. At least the Zoom one we'll be able to see. Facebook and YouTube we won't be able to see right now. Um, Ganesh, I began by asking you what is your biggest achievement, and you said it's not about the biggest achievement but biggest source of happiness. So, which was a breathtaking moment. So, if we shift our focus from what have been my achievements, if I can shift my focus to what have been my peaks of happiness, life changes quite a lot. Life changes quite a lot. Um, then I also spoke to you about the youth and the difference in the youth, whether it is from the fortunate families where economically or socially we are more blessed, like what we call as the cosmic lottery. Some of us have got the cosmic lottery where we have a relatively better social beginning to our life. And there are some who make a struggle right in the beginning of their life. So when I asked you about the difference over there, you said that the difference is not so much about the youth, the aspirations. The difference is so much more about the opportunities that we get. And I can see it. I mean, our children will probably get much bigger, much better, much easier, maybe more frequent opportunities than many of the other kids would get. Probably some of them won't even get the first good opportunity of their life. Like Ganesh, remember when we went to the juvenile jail and when we saw those kids over there who were class 11, 12, 16, 17 years old, then for circumstances, somebody did some crime, somebody's sister was being hurt and he hit somebody and his arm broke and then he was put inside jail. Now he lives his life with that label that he is a juvenile and maybe he won't get the first big opportunity. Now, one person shared with me that we can't drive an Ola and Uber also because license is not given to us because we have been juveniles and Ola Uber won't take us because customers say, I don't want to ride in a drive of juvenile. So when you say that it's not so much about aspirations or capabilities, but it's so much more about the opportunities that they get. I think there is a sense of responsibility in making it a little more equitable society by providing some opportunities to these people who may not otherwise get opportunities. And I think what you are doing through the lighthouse is exactly something like that, where thousands of youth will get the first big opportunity and not just the big opportunity, but also mentoring, support, and not only intellectual or academic support, but also emotional support, social support. So I think it's such a beautiful thing that is happening in PCC, Pune City Connect, and the lighthouses. And then when you say that lighthouses might become national very soon, and if things go the way it is going, I remember you mentioning to me there were some inquiries from international governments about why don't you replicate lighthouse there. So I think the answer for what is the Malayas of the society lies in the work that we are already doing. Um, then you spoke about how the youth is so language conscious and maybe also a little impression conscious about I am shy, will I be able to ask the question in a smart way? And if my language is not good, will people laugh at me? Whatever we say about if your language is not good, it's okay. The struggle somebody has to do when language is not great is definitely a little more than if somebody has fluency in language. So if we can tackle this, make people a little more fluent, or people take the inspiration to develop in themselves language skills, and a little daring to expose yourself, be vulnerable, ask questions. Because you ask questions 10 times, 50 times, 100 times. By the time you reach 100, you have a knack of asking questions in the right way, in the right tone. Because if I have not asked the questions right, I have gotten feedback, then I know I am not doing well. But after 100 at least, I would have become much better. Like you said, you used to be a little shy. Then you started participating in debates. Then you started winning debates. And today, there is nobody in the world you cannot talk to at an equal level as an intellectual or about projects or about ideas. So I think that that exposure, that self pull, that self drive, कि चलो बोलते हैं, चलो करते हैं, अभी लोगों को हंसना है तो हंसने दो, लेकिन
Correct.
जिस दिन अच्छा बोलूंगा उस दिन फिर सब मेरी सुनेंगे और सब मुझे मानेंगे. So that bridge is where that self drive and self initiative becomes very, very crucial, is what I got from that part of what you shared. And then you, passing mentioned a very deep thought, and that is that you have this ability to look at the positives even in a negative situation. And that is what brings you into a right frame of mind and keeps your energy level high, keeps your motivation high, wants you to work on the youth, do multiple things, think world class, think world scale. So even in a negative situation, there are so many positives that we can always find if we are actually looking for it. So today, the youth which is listening over here, and this will reach to at least 1 lakh children, uh, we have a tendency to look at what is not okay in our life. Sometimes about possession, sometimes about friendships, sometimes about the way our home is, sometimes it's also about my parents don't know great English, so I'm embarrassed to call my friends home. We have heard this from children.
Absolutely.
So when I have a tendency only at what is not okay, obviously drive is low, then I need to impress people, then I have to look cool. And that is where if I get invited, I go to parties. If somebody says, take your first swag and you will look very cool, fall a temptation to that. So not actually working on solving something by looking at the positives of a situation, but escaping from something and hoping somehow things turn out to be right. So it can be just solved by looking at the positives of a negative situation, making the most of it, and then moving ahead. Then what you mentioned about Rohini, Nilankini sharing about Samaj, Sarkar, and Bazaar looks like a very beautiful idea. Have to think about what is the role that we can play into making it a little more practical for the youth over here. Then every time I hear to those fast, focused, flexible, friendly, and fun, it brings a very beautiful smile, and it also makes things look very, very complete. It also makes it look practical for people to make each one of these five possible in life. So speed in technology world obviously is so essential. And there was a time, let's say when Ganesh was in college, then if you have to do research, 1 month, 2 month might go. You have to go to the library, sit over there for hours, take out a lot of books. But today, thanks to Google, the same thing probably can be done in 2 hours. So much technology is helping us to be so fast, which includes talking through the phone, video call. If I have to see someone, I can do that on the video call. So fast should be the natural way to move ahead. And in today's world, technology helps me to do that. Then focus is very clear when you ended and you said, when I know my priorities and I know the values that I stand for, like love and inclusion, then I can do multiple projects, and not only do multiple projects, also stay focused, because I know, okay, this is my framework. Anything falls in that framework, okay, it can be done. It doesn't fall in that framework, not interested. It's not my path. Flexible is the example that you used and you explained so much about. When the first opportunity doesn't come, like IIT was not possible, you went to BITS Pilani, but ultimately you did your PhD from IIT. If I am flexible and not stuck upon IIT hi chahiye, that is when things become a little complicated in life. Which also makes it, if I can keep my needs at a very practical level and understand probably the difference between need, want, and demand, I'm actually not decreasing my expectation from life, but I'm understanding what is possible. For example, my need when I'm hungry is food. Now, there are very easy ways to satisfy my hunger. My want can be, I want to have idli sambar. Now, my options become very limited. And my demand would be, I want idli sambar only from Vaishali and no other place. Then the choices and options for me in life gets very, very limited. So hunger is essentially what needs to be tackled. And if I can focus on the needs, it's very easy to get what I want in life and live a very good, beautiful, positive, complete life. It becomes wants, becomes a little complicated. Demands, then it becomes really complicated, and chances of disappointment also becomes very high in life. So what I understand when you say flexible is you may have a very strong demand, but be flexible enough to come to want. कहीं और से भी इडली सांभर आ गया तो खा लेना, वो भी अगर नहीं मिला तो यार जो है वो खा के पेट भर ले, अगला देखेंगे ना क्या मिल सकता है. So flexible therefore makes so much sense, and it doesn't look like a sacrifice. Oh my God, I have to sacrifice. I wanted this. I wanted an iPhone, but I have to settle for a Vivo or a Xiaomi. The need is getting met. So life is not stopping. So that is where flexible can be very, very powerful. Friendly and fun is what I have always seen you. And all these five therefore looks like something which is so practical, not only for work, but every aspect of life. Then you made a great statement, and that was college is actually preparing you only for your first job. After that, there are multiple other things which come into play: initiative, sense of responsibility, finding a mentor for yourself, your hard work, etc. etc. So, college is not the ultimate of life, but a good college will give you a good first job. So, college is actually preparing you for your first job, it is not setting you up for life. And then again, in passing, you made a very brief statement. Anytime you're unhappy, change something. Which means I take the responsibility for me to become happy again rather than depending on somebody else to make me happy. So anytime I'm unhappy, I'm not waiting for somebody else to change. So I'm not waiting for Bharti to change or somebody else to change. I'm saying I will change something. I can change the channel of the TV. I can change the music I'm listening to. I can talk to a person, go for a walk. But activity and shift of focus can very easily help me to transform my unhappiness back to happiness in the right phrase of mind. And finally, when you said that use communication to handle expectations, when you give the example of the board and kayamat se kayamat tak, quarter se quarter tak, sometimes there will be people who
I myself,
they might want earning very high earnings quarter on quarter. But if I know it's going to take 2 years, if I keep communicating, then I know how to manage those expectations. Though in my life, neither am I in the corporate world, nor do I go for liquid spirituality. So quarter se quarter tak is not a very active aspect of my life. But then I completely understand what you're saying when you say handle expectations of the world through great communication. And then what do you stand for? Love and inclusion. So an ocean of learning, as always, whenever I am with you. And I'm sure that everybody over here would have learned more. I'm sure I would have missed many, many points which I couldn't take down. Ganesh, thank you so much for coming with us. It has been a great pleasure as always.
can I take 1 minute?
Yes, please. We have all the time.
Okay, no, why I'm saying it, but I haven't even shared this with you, Naren, but I will share this with the youth. One of the new entities we're building, it's called Career Kiran, and I'll tell you why it's Career Kiran. Because we believe, and what I said earlier, that every 15 years you may have a change of requirement, counseling. We actually want to build a digital platform, which is a ray of light throughout your life. That's why it's Career Kiran. So right from the time you are just graduating from college, to the time when you've done 5 years of your first job and you're getting bored, to the time when maybe you're in your 30s or 40s and you want to change your career entirely because of opportunities, to the time when you're maybe 55, 56 years old and said, look, let me start giving back to society. We want to create a digital platform that will enable you to get advice at all. So we're going to get 1,000 mentors, including people like Naren, to be available. I mean, it's almost like imagine a Ola. You need to go somewhere, you just find which Ola is available, and you can either get something very fast or you can get a Ola Prime or whatever. So you can get that. So I think that we want to create that kind of an environment. And interestingly, we want to create a happiness track right through. This morning, I was talking to a gentleman who lives in Sacramento, California, so asking him whether he wants to be part of the happiness track. Okay, so throughout the various career points where we'll be counseling, we'll also provide you sources of happiness, etc., etc. So Naren, I will come and we will do one more coffee chat in your office. So
Yes.
we need you to get involved. And we really need, and I'm happy to offer it to every one of you who are listening, not only on Zoom, but also Facebook. All of you should be the first people on this. You've heard me, you've heard Naren. We will try and make sure that your life is made 10% happier, 20% more successful because of interaction with us. So I think that is my promise to all of you. And let's try and make it happen.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. Thanks, Ganesh. Thanks a ton for coming. Thanks. Love you so much. And a big COVID-free hug for you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. You too. Thank you.
Thanks.